So we got to get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, Monday, Thanksgiving week. A happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'll say that a bunch this week. The transfer of power, the peaceful transfer of power. One presidential administration leaves, another comes in. And no matter the party, no matter the politics, the beautifully unique American thing has always been that we peacefully transition and transfer that power. The incoming president works with the outgoing president. The two teams work together to make sure there's a smooth transition, to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, to make sure that when it comes to national security issues, this country doesn't miss a beat. And again, it doesn't matter who wins and who loses. There's an election, somebody wins, somebody loses. Whoever is in the White House, whoever the president is, they cooperate with. They work with the incoming president and his team to make sure, again, that this transition doesn't miss a beat. The 2.2 million people working in the federal government do not miss a beat. It's seamless for the health, the welfare, and the security of the American people. And damn it, Donald Trump is doing it again. Donald Trump, once again, is messing with, screwing with, attacking that transfer of power. He did it in 2020, right? For the first time. Trump, he's always like the first in history at all the bad stuff. For the first time in history, in 2020, Donald Trump didn't cooperate with the incoming administration. Donald Trump didn't work at all, and his team and his people didn't work at all with Joe Biden and his team and his people. There was no transition in 2020. There was no peaceful transfer of power in 2020. It went a lot worse. It got a lot worse because Donald Trump would never concede. Donald Trump would never, ever admit that he lost. He never conceded. He led to January 6th, but because of all of that, Joe Biden was sworn into office as the president on January 20th, and there had been no transition. The incoming Biden team had never worked with the outgoing Trump team. The two secretaries of state never met. The two people in charge of intelligence never met. The two attorney generals, the outgoing and the incoming, never met. Issues like justice and security and national defense were never dealt with. There was no transition in 2020 because Donald Trump would never concede, so he never participated in any transfer of power. He's doing the same thing this time. And what pisses me off is this isn't even being talked about. Trump's doing the same thing this time. Trump is stiff-arming the transition. He's not cooperating with this transition. He's not at all working with him and his people. They're not at all working with the government agencies, the federal government agencies that the incoming administration works with to ensure a peaceful transfer of power. As a Trump supporter said it over the weekend, Donald Trump is engaged in a hostile takeover of the federal government. There's been no transition. Once again, Trump is messing with the transfer of power. I mean, for whole different reasons this time. Last time he didn't cooperate at all because he lost and he couldn't admit it. He wasn't big enough. He wasn't American enough. He wasn't courageous enough to admit that he lost. So because he never could admit he lost, he didn't work with the guy who won, Biden. This time, Trump's refusing to do what he needs to do, what he's supposed to do to ensure a peaceful transfer of power, because he doesn't trust the FBI. He doesn't trust the Justice Department. He doesn't trust our intelligence agencies. He doesn't trust the GSA. He doesn't trust the federal government. So Trump has decided, I'm not going to involve the federal government at all. Because he's such a baby. He's so paranoid. He thinks they were all after him all these years. Donald Trump, once again, is fully content, once again, to put American lives at risk. And just so you know, again, this should be talked about. This is a big deal because this will impact our national security. It will impact the health and welfare of every American. It will impact our relationships with our allies. It'll impact everything. Right now, Trump's team, Trump's national security team, is not and cannot meet with any of the current national security officials. They can't see any of the intelligence. Why? Because Trump has decided they will not participate in the transition. They will not sign the official government docs to then allow the incoming and the outgoing administrations to work together. Trump's decided not to do that. He's decided not to engage any agency in the federal government. Why this isn't being talked about? This is a huge, huge deal. And by the way, Republicans won't do anything about this. His supporters won't care. This is unprecedented. Donald Trump is refusing to sign the disclosure forms outlining who's paying for the transition. He doesn't want people to know who's paying for his transition. So he's refusing to sign the disclosure forms. He's refusing to sign the memorandums of understanding with the GSA, the FBI, and the Justice Department. He's refusing to sign those, which you need to sign to begin the formal transition of power. He's not doing any of that. He's stiff-arming the FBI. He's stiff-arming the Justice Department. He's stiff-arming all the federal government agencies who right now are supposed to be helping with the transition. This is unprecedented. It's never, ever happened this late. It did 4 years ago when Trump was president because Trump wouldn't cooperate. So Joe Biden and his team had no choice. They had to do everything on their own. No president, no presidential candidate who has won has ever done this. Donald Trump is refusing to sign the transition documents that begin the formal transition of power. Why is that a big deal? Well, until you sign those documents, the FBI can't vet any of your candidates for any of your cabinet positions. Trump is refusing to sign any ethics, the ethics pledges that he and all of his people have to sign, outlining any potential conflicts of interest, disclosing the names of any transition donors. Trump and his people are just refusing to sign any of this. All the transparency documents, all the ethics documents. So because Trump isn't doing any of this, Trump's people right now, Marco Rubio, Walz, all the rest right now, his people right now can't be briefed on any security issues. They can't access any of the cybersecurity support. They can't access secure email servers. They can't access anything regarding security in our government because Trump won't sign these papers to begin the entire process. Now, why won't he? What's he hiding? And by the way, Trump's the first candidate for president who won, the first incoming president who won't disclose who's funding his transition. He won't disclose those names. So we don't know what wealthy people, the public doesn't know what wealthy people are funding Trump's transition. The public doesn't know if Putin or Orban or other foreign sources are funding Donald Trump's transition because Trump won't sign the papers to disclose any of that. And because he won't sign the papers and begin the formal transition so that the two teams can formally work together, so that when it comes to issues of crime and national security and defense, terrorism, nothing falls through the cracks, and the incoming Trump people can pick everything up and be running full speed ahead once Donald Trump is sworn in. Donald Trump has said no to all of that. He's said no to all of that. The first time any incoming president has. Now, there are reports that Trump's just pissed off at the FBI, doesn't trust the FBI, pissed off at the Justice Department, doesn't trust the Justice Department, pissed off at the State Department, doesn't trust the State Department, pissed off at the GSA, Government Services Agency, because he doesn't trust the GSA, pissed off at our intelligence community because he doesn't trust our intelligence community. Basically, Donald Trump, it's been told, is pissed off at the entire federal government because he believes the entire federal government was after him for the 4 years of his first term. So he's not going to cooperate at all with the federal government in this transition. And here we are ending November, and they still haven't signed on. They still haven't. Trump hasn't started the transition. Oh, sure. Joe Biden invited him to the White House a week and a half ago. I don't know why. Shouldn't have, but he did for that photo op. But the Trump administration, the Trump team is the first team that has not formally begun the official transition. Every member of the incoming president's team is bound by an ethics agreement that makes crystal clear that you're using all the security, all the intelligence, everything you get, all the information you get, you're using appropriately. You're not allowing foreign agents or lobbyists to access this information. And if you're part of the transition team and then you go back to the private sector when the transition's done, you pledge not to disclose any of the information you gleaned for any private gain. Trump is refusing to sign these documents. So here we are, November 25th, and the Trump team, every member of the Trump team has still not met with any of the federal agencies. Marco Rubio, incoming Secretary of State, cannot meet with Tony Blinken. Any of Rubio's people can't meet with anybody in the State Department to talk about threats around the world, relationships around the world. None of that can happen because Donald Trump's pissed at a deep state and he doesn't trust the State Department. You can go down agency by agency. The people that Trump wants to put in charge of our intelligence, if this continues, will begin their jobs having never been briefed by current intelligence officials. Trump sworn in, Trump's intelligence people, they start naked on day one. Again, this is a mammoth operation. We're talking about 2,200 federal employees. This is a big deal, a big operation. And every single 4 years, right, the incoming and the outgoing, they work together to make sure that you're okay and I'm okay. To make sure that the security of this country doesn't miss a day, doesn't miss an hour in a day. But Trump's not doing any of that because what? Because Donald Trump, again, doesn't want his cabinet picks to have FBI background checks. I mean, that's part of this. The FBI cannot begin any background checks until the transition process is formally started, and the transition process cannot formally start until Donald Trump and his team sign the memorandums of understanding, sign the official government docs to begin the official government transition. But because Trump hasn't done that, no FBI background checks. So the people in charge of our national security, the people in charge of the defense of this country, will not have an FBI background check. And again, to Trump and his closest cheerleaders, screw the FBI. The FBI is the enemy. That's what's driving this. You understand? Donald Trump and his people. Why would you not do this? Why would you not? Why would you be the first presidential winner to not transition, to not peacefully, smoothly, seamlessly, to not officially transition? Trump did it in 2020, but that's just because he was a big baby and he couldn't admit he lost. And by the way, we took a hit in 2020. Joe Biden, the incoming president back then, and his COVID team never, ever, ever got briefed by Trump's COVID people. Biden's national security people never, ever got briefed by Trump's national security people. They never saw the intelligence because Trump wouldn't cooperate then. This is a problem. I mean, the result of this is Donald Trump, because he's a horrible guy and he's paranoid and he's a big crybaby who's mad at the federal government, who believes the FBI is the enemy, the Justice Department is the enemy, our intelligence agencies are. And by the way, I got no fucking patience. If you're listening right now, MAGA, and you believe that our FBI is the enemy, like Trump doesn't want background checks on the people who will be in charge of keeping you and me safe. Trump refuses to start the process to let the FBI do their job to make sure that the people Trump's bringing on help keep us safe and are not a threat to the security of you and I, because Trump won't start that process. He's endangering your life. He's endangering my life. He's endangering the security of this country. And look, if you like Trump, and take the whole world, right? You got this whole big planet. If everybody on this whole planet, and you think our FBI is our enemy, shame on you. Shame on you. But that's what Trump thinks, and that's what we elected, which is why Trump and his team are doing their own thing down at Mar-a-Lago when it comes to this transition. They're doing their own transition, not cooperating with the White House. The White House is pleading with the Trump administration to sit down and transition, sign these papers, sign these understandings so the transition can begin. The Biden administration is pleading with Trump and his people to do it because the Biden administration understands what's at risk if we don't, if Trump doesn't. Just the security of this country. Trump's doing it all down on his own. Forget the FBI. He's going to do his own private sector background checks. I mean, part of you thinks, what's Trump hiding? Trump's refusing to sign these papers because he doesn't want people to know who's donating to his transition. Like, that sounds really swampy to me. That sounds really corrupt. And there was a day, MAGA, where something like that would bother you. Barack Obama, say Barack Obama's elected and Barack Obama is going to become president, and Barack Obama refuses to disclose who's donating to his transition. I got to believe, MAGA, you'd have an issue with that. A big issue with that. And if Barack Obama picked a few really controversial people for his cabinet, but Barack Obama refused to sign the papers to have those controversial cabinet picks undergo an FBI background check, I guarantee you, MAGA, Sean Hannity, all the rest, you'd be screaming to the high heavens. This is the swamp. This is utter corruption. But because it's your guy, you don't say anything. I mean, is Putin contributing to Trump's transition? And if Putin was contributing to Trump's transition, and if Trump doesn't officially begin the transition, formally begin the transition, we'll never know. We'll never know who gave Trump money during the transition. But is that a big deal? Is that a big deal? If would you mind, MAGA, if Putin himself wrote $1 million or $2 million check to Trump's transition team? Would you mind? Would that bother you? Would you at least want to know about it? I think it's a combination of, I think, as always with Trump, he's hiding shit. He does not want people to know who's contributed and contributing to his transition. He does not want Tulsi Gabbard or Pete Hegseth, his pick for to run the Defense Department. He does not want them exposed to an FBI background check, because Trump doesn't believe Hegseth or Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. for that matter, could pass. Matt Gaetz wouldn't have, could pass an FBI background check. And by the way, does that bother you, MAGA, at all? If any of Trump's picks couldn't pass an FBI background check, it would bother me. Because, silly me, I don't consider the men and women, the 57,000 men and women who work for our FBI, I don't consider them to be the enemy. I consider Putin to be our enemy. I can point out a lot of other enemies around the world, but not the 57,000 people Americans, fellow Americans who work at the FBI. Either Trump's hiding something. This is off the charts, unprecedented. And it's not being talked enough about. The headline should be, Donald Trump is attacking the peaceful transfer of power again. American lives are going to be put at risk again. That should be the headline. It got a little bit of notice last week, just the whole FBI background check thing. I mean, it never happened before. Trump cabinet picks, not having to undergo FBI background checks. What are they afraid of? I mean, that should be like, that should be, I mean, red flags blaring, red sirens every single day. But at the base of this is Trump's declared war on our federal government. And I think that's why he's refusing to formally engage the federal government in the transition. Trump's declared war on the federal government. And by golly, if that's what you wanted, you got it. Every agency in the federal government. This is just the beginning. He's not even sworn in yet. You're going to get 4 years of this. You're going to get 4 years of Donald Trump at war with the FBI, at war with the Justice Department, at war with Health and Human Services, at war with every government bureaucrat, at war with the State Department, at war with our intelligence community. If that's what you wanted, clearly, based on what Trump is doing right now, giving the middle finger to this nation's transition process, that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get. Because Trump believes they're the enemy. They're not. But just know, everybody applauding Donald Trump right now for doing something no other incoming administration has done. Just know that this is going to put the lives of you and everybody you love at risk. This will put the security of this country at risk. And Vladimir Putin himself couldn't have written this script any better. No transition, no communication, no meeting, no two administrations, no meeting on national security issues, no meeting at all on the latest with Russia. Putin is smiling. He loves this. Trump's people are going to enter into office on January 20th not knowing shit. And even you, MAGA, hope you all had a good weekend. Even you, MAGA, got to understand the threat that is. Happy Thanksgiving again this week, everybody. Thank you for listening. Send me an email about anything, joewalshwhiteflag@gmail.com, all one word, joewalshwhiteflag@gmail.com. Be brave.
Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract with Joe Walsh.